Helaena lies dead beneath her window. What you likely missed is that her final embroidery turns that death into a warning about the queen who spent this finale declaring herself chosen. The treasons at Tumbleton ties every hostage, bargain, and burst of dragon fire to one mechanism Baela names in plain language. Rhaenyra wields useful people and abandons the rest. So why did Helaena choose the fall, and was what she left behind a prophecy or a warning? Rhaenyra's grand declaration hides the finale's first reversal. She calls herself chosen precisely when the realm has found a rival sign from the gods. Aegon supporters send ravens announcing that he and Sunfire survived Rook's Rest, and the small folk read their return as a sign from the gods. The sign is made flesh at Harrenhal, where Aemond wakes to find Aegon alive, burned and limping, but returned to claim what is his. Aegon rages at the brother who tried to murder him, yet Aemond kneels, admits he coveted the crown, and refuses to fight back. The plan Aegon lays out is the season's real cliffhanger. Find Vhagar, put Daeron and Ormond in line, then march on King's Landing under his own banner, with forgiveness for Aemond deferred until victory. Daemon answers the rival sign by claiming lesser gods cannot overrule the blood of old Valyria and the absolute power it gives Rhaenyra. His reassurance is revealing, since it replaces the consent of the realm with the supposed authority of blood. Rhaenyra first curses Viserys for burdening her with prophecy, then publicly makes that same prophecy the proof of her right to rule. The High Septon refuses to anoint her because he treats the survival of Aegon and Sunfire as the clearest sign that the gods chose Aegon, so she answers that rival certainty by having him killed. That murder replaces a sacred blessing with coerced theater before Rhaenyra even begins her speech. She presents the show's prophecy as a charge passed from Aegon the Conqueror through Jaehaerys and Viserys to her, and names herself the Shield of the People. Then she goes further in High Valyrian, claiming the prophecy's own title, I am the prince that was promised. Calling herself Rhaenyra the Chosen does not settle the prophecy. It reveals how completely she now needs prophecy to settle politics. The scene's dark irony is that a ruler claiming she alone can save the people has just destroyed the realm's highest religious authority, willing to tell her no. Baela exposes the mechanism beneath that divine language. In Rhaenyra's court, every useful person becomes a weapon, and every inconvenient person becomes expendable. Her request to rescue Corlys is delayed until Tumbleton is reclaimed, making his life subordinate to the next military objective. Baela then names the pattern Rhaenyra will not, invoking Rhaena and arguing that only her own dragon kept her from being abandoned after the gullet. Rhaenyra calls the challenge insolent, and Adam later tells Aelin that Baela has been grounded and confined to the keep. Mysaria is dismissed and sent toward Pentos without the episode explaining Rhaenyra's motive, but her final warning shows what the court has become. She tells Helaena that Aegon and Sunfire live, and that Helena's unborn child can be treated as a hostage or prize. Helaena calls both the place and Rhaenyra ugly, and the threat to force her hand ends with attendants restraining her while she is force-fed. The same pressure reaches the Valyrian brothers. Aelin asserts that he is Corlys's eldest living son and named successor, while Adam resents an elevation that leaves Corlys beneath the Hightower gallows. Even the proposed peace allocates people as pieces, with Daeron ruling from Oldtown until Corlys counters with a lesser title and a marriage to Rhaena. Daemon rejects the bargain and declares that the Corlys returned to him in good faith is his prisoner rather than a hand restored. Back in the capital, Rhaenyra names Joffrey her heir and hands him the same northern prophecy she cursed Viserys for handing her, until family, succession, and apocalypse are part of the same chain of command. Tumbleton proves the finale's central warning. Absolute power can issue an order, but it cannot control the fire or the person carrying it. Daemon's plan sounds disciplined, with Caraxes assigned to the battlements and gate, Silverwing guarding the rear, and the town preserved for the Queen's moral standing. The children placed in danger by Ormond make that clean plan impossible before the assault even begins. Daemon sends Roderick's graybeards over the walls to open the gate, yet Roderick's order of no mercy or quarter exposes how quickly restraint disappears inside battle. When Caraxes finally burns the gate, children are still screaming beneath the battlements, and the violence has already exceeded the moral story Daemon meant to tell about it. Ulf makes the failure personal. He begins drunk and asleep, is beaten back onto Silverwing, then kills a young messenger before the order can even be completed. His Dracarys answers the question Episode 7 planted. Bought by Ormond to change sides, Ulf instead burns the Black Army that cheered him, then Ormond and Roderick both, then the town itself, loyal to nothing but the fire. Roderick kills Ormond in their brutal duel and greets Silverwing's flames with open arms, while Daeron remains with Tessarion, and a weak voice calling his name is not enough to declare the prince dead. Daemon himself is losing his duel with Roxton when Ulf's firestorm tears the field apart and separates them, sparing the queen's husband by pure accident. Corlys leads a stunned Daemon away as the town is lost, while Hugh, finding Kat's body, turns the battle's cost into something no banner can disguise. For the book readers, this is the finale's sharpest divergence. In Fire and Blood, Ulf and Hugh are the two betrayers who turn together at Tumbleton, but the show sends Hugh running for Kat instead and leaves Ulf to betray alone. Tumbleton is not a clean proof of one man's evil. It is the collapse of a plan built on controlled violence. The butterfly montage creates an emotional connection between Helaena and Alicent, but its power comes from refusing to prove that the connection is supernatural. Helena's earlier judgment that Rhaenyra herself is ugly gains force after the queen has her restrained and force-fed. Elinda's call brings Rhaenyra into an empty chamber, where an open window waits and she looks down at what the camera does not yet show us. The edit withholds the body and instead follows a blue butterfly out across the landscape, refusing to explain what Helaena thought before she fell. It then finds Alicent at a forest camp, looking up as blue butterflies pass her, inviting us to feel that a mother has been reached without confirming that she senses the death. Only then comes the direct image, brutal and literal. Helaena dead beneath the window, impaled through the neck on broken wood. Sharp-eyed viewers will recognize the window itself, framed exactly like the one Tommen steps through in Game of Thrones, a rhyme planted a century early. Back in the chamber, Helena's embroidered cloth shows a red dragon in flames, a tower, and a green dragon diving beside it with a small figure falling as blue tears rain after them. It also shows a crowned Rhaenyra before the Iron Throne wreathed in fire, so the cloth places Helena's fall and Rhaenyra's triumph side by side as one stitched prophecy. Rhaenyra studies it and looks shaken, as though the silent prisoner has left behind the one answer she cannot command. Her closing the window can suggest grief, denial, or an attempt to shut out the warning, but the finale wisely leaves that gesture wordless. Helena's choice only becomes legible when we separate what the finale shows, what it implies, and what remains speculation. What is shown before her death is a tightening pattern of control. Her food and movement are dictated, and Mysaria warns that her unborn child could become a hostage. That sequence establishes confinement without disclosing Helena's private motive. The tapestry implies that Helaena foresaw both the crowning and her own fall. Whether that vision was fixed fate or a chosen exit remains speculation. The episode adds a quiet omen on her last walk outside, when Helaena passes the gray mare from her dreams, the sign the season taught us to read as death approaching. The escape reading is also implied by the hostage warning and forced feeding, making death the last decision Rhaenyra could not make for Helaena or her unborn child. The final warning reading gathers the most images. The blue tears, the crowned queen, the surrounding dragons and flames, and Rhaenyra's visible shock all place triumph beside catastrophe. What remains speculation is whether Helaena knew every consequence, whether the butterflies carried a message to Alicent, and whether the cloth dictated her exact action. Fixed prophecy explains her apparent foreknowledge, escape explains the immediate pressure, and resistance explains why the episode places the tapestry in Rhaenyra's hands. For the book readers, fire and blood cannot settle this death either. The competing accounts of Grand Maester Mungun, Septon Eustace, and Mushroom disagree on why Helaena fell, and the book even carries whispers that she was pushed. The show keeps the spikes beneath her window from the page, but replaces that contested history with something no chronicler had, her own stitched account, left for Rhaenyra to read. That is why the warning reading carries the most weight, while the episode deliberately denies us the certainty needed to erase the other two. The episode frames Helena's death as a final reclamation of agency. After her food and movement are controlled and her unborn child is named a hostage, the last decision cannot be made for her. The episode never opens her mind to us, so fixed destiny, escape, and resistance remain readings, not a revealed motive. But the images choose their target. A figure falling beside a stitched tower, a green dragon crying blue tears, Rhaenyra crowned inside dragonfire, and the queen herself left holding Helena's embroidery. Tumbleton has already shown what that warning means. Daemon can order restraint, declare the queen's moral standing absolute, and still watch one dragon rider turn the city into a furnace. On the warning reading, closing the window becomes Rhaenyra's attempt to shut it out, though the wordless gesture also permits grief or shock. As a season finale, the episode leaves every thread deliberately live. Daeron's fate unconfirmed, Ulf loose on Silverwing with two riderless dragons hunting him, Aegon searching for Vhagar, and Alicent still in the woods between the armies. With the show planned to end in Season 4, those are not loose ends. They are the shape of the final war. So cast your vote in the poll. Was Helena's tapestry a prophecy or a warning? The season ends with Rhaenyra closer than ever to the Iron Throne, and less able than ever to control what reaching it will cost. Make sure to subscribe so you never miss our deep dive into the latest secrets from Westeros next week. Do you think Ulf truly joined the Greens, or did he only choose himself?